This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
What a crazy week in college football. Week 9, Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross, Jacob Wilson will come barging in here in just a second. He had to stop and put air in his tires because of the weather, Garrett.
It'll get you.
It is quite chilly in Waco today. I know that if you're watching this and you are above the Mason-Dixon line, or maybe not even above the Mason-Dixon line, if you're just north of Texas and you're like, oh, it's 43 degrees, and you're like, oh, I bet you guys like that. We're happy it's cooler, but no, we don't like it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm all about the cold weather, dude.
Yeah. Well, you're wearing a hockey jersey today.
Yeah.
So all that.
Fitting.
Here we go.
Here it comes.
We get the barge in, which is only something, come on, just walk in front of the camera. I don't care. There we go. Yeah. So we had to start, Jacob. I know you were filling up your tires, but a crazy week in college football, Garrett. There is some news that has broken today, this morning, in the Big Ten, and it is only surprising that it happened this early. But Brian Ferentz is no longer the offensive coordinator at the University of Iowa. He will be replaced by Weston Copeland, who is the wide receivers coach, in the interim OC role for the remaining games of this season. The drive to 325 has officially ended.
It should have.
Yeah.
Should have been dead.
It should have been over before it started. I don't know what they thought was going to happen. What's the old definition of insanity?
When you try the same thing over and over again and
Yeah.
expect different results. And look, 12 points, you should be able to score more than 12 points and win a football game, right?
So, yes. So this week they play Northwestern. The over-under in that game is 29.5. Do you know how many over-unders have been that low in the history of college football?
I mean, I would say double digits maybe.
Zero.
Zero.
It is the lowest over-under since they started doing that.
Wow. I mean, I would have thought that Iowa would have hit that mark in the past, but that even surpassed my expectation.
And again, for Northwestern and Iowa, I would, at 29.5, I would bang the under because 17-14 seems like a lot of points for that game. So
Yeah, when you say that out loud, that number of points being scored by either of those teams, yeah, it makes sense why the line is set where it is.
yeah. So that is Iowa football's. That's the under for Iowa. And then look, they hit the under the whole year. Like that was their offense. They had one game where they scored like 30 points against an FCS opponent, and you thought like, oh well, maybe they can kind of.
Yeah. I'm not a gambling guy. I grew up here where it hasn't been legal for the history of this place here in Texas.
Yeah.
But I would imagine someone out there in Vegas is losing a lot of money on the Iowa Hawkeyes just because everyone keeps hitting the under over and over and over again. And that's why they had to do something drastic, like putting a 2 in front of that line.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's not the craziest thing happened. That's just the breaking news of the day that happened just a couple hours ago. Iowa announced that. But, Jacob, we saw some big upsets this week, and we didn't know what we were going to see or some things that were championship picture changing. Let's start out with Oklahoma and Kansas.
I called this one. Garrett, you remember it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Kansas wins that game. Jason Bean's signature win as a quarterback.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if this is probably, I will say this one is Lance Leipold's signature win, even though he does have a dub over Texas, because this is a different situation.
He's also not even through the worst of the years of Kansas football, he's not the only Kansas coach that has a win over Texas.
Yes, David Beatty has one.
That's true.
So yeah, it's not as special, but Kansas has never beaten Oklahoma. Or not
First
beaten
one
them
since like 1997, right?
Yeah, they just never do. Like, it's not happened in the big, like.
I mean, they've been together since the Big Eight, so that had to have been a middle finger that was really satisfying to just throw it to Oklahoma.
Yeah, they're like, I can tell you this: Kansas and Oklahoma will not play a regular season game against each other again in any of our lifetimes.
I believe you.
In this room.
I believe you.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Kansas could call Oklahoma and be like, "Hey, you guys want it," and then like Oklahoma's not going to take the call. Like the last time that they ever play Oklahoma, it's going to be a Kansas win. The only reason I would be wrong about that statement is if it bothers Oklahoma so much
But they just have to go and make it right.
They're like, hey, hold on. I don't like that the last time we played, we lost. We have to make this right. And then when you start, when you're out for revenge, you dig 2 graves or whatever it is,
Exactly. I mean, I've got a feeling it's going to be like the Warriors, where Kansas is like the guy with the bottles. Warriors, come out and play.
So that was huge in that I don't think it's taken Oklahoma completely out of the college football playoff picture, but now they need help.
That's true.
And they're going to need a little bit more because no matter how good Kansas is, and Kansas is good. Like, let's not forget this. Lance Leipold has done good things with his team. This is a good team. This is not that much of a stretch of an upset, but I just don't trust the committee not to go, well, I mean, they lost to Kansas, and that will be devalued somehow.
I mean, it's going to be hard for a committee to remember that this isn't the same Kansas team that has been the doormat in the Big 12 for 15 consecutive years, but the Big 12 teams don't get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to voting in any way whatsoever. And so I think there's a really good chance that the Big 12 goose is cooked when it comes to competing for a national championship.
I mean, look, that's a fair point. Look, if Texas loses to Kansas State this week, that effectively takes them out of it. And I don't know what's going to happen in that game. Texas looked really good against BYU. I think, not a knock on Texas, but I kind of expected BYU to lose that badly in Austin. Malik Murphy played well. I mean, everything worked out well for them, but BYU is not Kansas State.
No, they're not.
Now, Texas has beaten Kansas State 3 straight years, so that maybe gives you a little bit of hope, but I doubt that we're going to see Quinn Ewers. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in this game this week. But, yeah, I think Texas and Oklahoma, one of them has to win out, and they both need help. So
they need a lot of help.
They need a lot of help. I mean, look, Washington.
I think a 1-loss Alabama beats a 1-loss Texas and a 1-loss Oklahoma in any kind of voting.
Now, Alabama's 1 loss is to Texas at home. So I do think that Texas would jump them in that scenario because don't forget who Texas is. They are Texas, and they do have influence. If you need any kind of empirical research on Texas influence, I will hearken you back to not getting a review against Houston on their way out of a league. So they still I'm not saying those things are intentional. I think they're just
they get the benefit of the doubt.
They get the benefit of the doubt. They've cast a specter over the league, and so because of that, there is this big even still. It's okay. It's kind of like where. We hear it all the time on our show, Jacob. People are like, well, listen, I like that Clemson's doing it the right way recruiting-wise. They're like, no, they're not. They're doing it the wrong way. They're not the only ones who are following the rules. The rules have changed, and they refuse to take advantage of them. So it's like people think of things the same way. Like, oh, well, Alabama gave this kid a bunch of money, so he went there. And you're like, yeah. That's what you do.
I base that take on just history, and because Texas, while they do have this aura of superiority, even when they are not good, and they have this benefit of the doubt, but they have never been in the college football playoff, and Alabama has gotten that benefit of the doubt plenty of times before, and so until I see it happen, I still think a 1-loss Alabama team jumps them. I really do.
Well, I mean, look, they're Alabama's loss. And they beat the crap out of them, too, in the second half of that game. So,
I mean, timing of year, I think, plays a factor into it. That was early enough in the year that people might forget about it.
Yeah. No, I also don't think that when you have Alabama, Alabama's not passing the eye test every week. Part of the thing that they were able to do before is they'd have their loss, but every other week they pass the eye test. They don't really pass the eye test right now.
Even if Alabama, there's a good chance they could get beat on Saturday. There's also a good chance that Nick Saban outcoaches Brian Kelly and the Tide get the dub. But at the same time, if they go into the SEC championship and they get beat by Georgia, which more than likely is going to happen, there goes the 1-loss scenario for the Tide.
I agree with that, Garrett. I do, because that would add 2 losses.
Yeah. No, I think, look, Alabama needs a ton of help. They really do because they don't look, when you watch them, they don't look good. They look better by comparison than the other teams they're playing. Because guess what? I'm saying it. I'm going to say it loud. I'm going to step back from the mic. The SEC is crap now. Boo. It is, though. Like,
Oh, it is.
It is not like you can sit there and say for years and years and years in your marketing material, it just means more. Well, guess what? This year, it just means the same. It just means the same. You're in a down year. It's fine. It happens to literally everyone else. And like, if the committee doesn't recognize that, then yes, I think that could be a problem. But and we'll see tonight. If they have Alabama a little higher than Alabama should be in those rankings, should be like, damn it. Here they go again, suckling at the Tide teat. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think there are.
I've had that exact thought too many times in my life, and that's the reason why I'm thinking this way.
Yeah, I think that there are maybe 9 teams in the country that are for sure better than Alabama, in my opinion. Now, Alabama's ranked 8th, but yeah, I say 9. There's 7 teams for sure that are, in my opinion, better than Alabama. Texas, who's ranked right to have them, is one of them. Oregon's one of them. Washington's one of them. Florida State, Ohio State, Michigan, all better. Ohio State and Bama would be interesting. Ohio State has a better roster, I think, than Alabama does right now around their quarterback.
I would take the Buckeyes in that matchup any day.
But Marvin Harrison Jr.
Complete mismatch.
Yeah, I mean, he's a mismatch for everybody. If they do beat Michigan, that's going to be why, because he had like 14 catches for 286 yards and 4 TDs, and Michigan, in spite of all their good things going on for them on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I've got lots of thoughts about him.
Yeah, we'll talk about him in the third segment, Jacob. But yeah, and look, Georgia's starting to find themselves. I don't think that you should put too much weight behind the fact that they beat Florida, other than the fact that they beat Florida so bad.
Yeah, I think you're going to learn a lot. I think there's only 2 teams left on their schedule that have a remote chance at hell of beating them. That's this Saturday against Mizzou, a team that's pushed them in the past, and then Ole Miss. But Ole Miss would probably get in their own way and get beat by Georgia. So I think Georgia cruises through the regular season, and then you've got to hope that whoever they meet in the championship game, can give them their first loss of the season. But regardless, I don't see a scenario where they're not in the Final Four at the end of the year.
Yeah. Right now, it looks like they're going to play Alabama in the championship game. But
yeah,
LSU could change that completely. And LSU, in spite of their defense not being very good, it's played better lately. So we'll see.
But you also have Mekhi Wingo, the news coming out today, your best defensive lineman is done for the year.
Yeah, that's not good.
Not at all.
Good stuff. So, I don't know. But there were shakeups this week, big-time shakeups. Look,
yeah.
I'm not
there's a basketball school in the Tar Heel State that
they're ranked 25th in the coaches poll, and they're not ranked in the AP poll, which they should not be when you lose to back-to-back unranked opponents. And one of those opponents,
not good unranked opponents at that.
And Georgia Tech is a little bit on the rise. Like, Brent Key has got them kind of going up a little bit, but they shouldn't be going up that much. And they've lost to them 3 years in a row now. But you also lost to Virginia, who's not great. Although Virginia did push Miami into overtime this week. So maybe they're on their ascendancy as well. Who knows?
Yeah.
What's going on? But yeah, you've got an ACC now that's essentially Florida State and Louisville heading towards the end. Florida State could take a loss and still probably wind up in the game now, in the ACC title game. If they beat Pitt this week, I think that doesn't matter what even happens against Miami. They're probably guaranteed of being in the ACC title game. And then Louisville, should they win this week,
they've kind of snuck up out of nowhere this year.
Yeah, very much out of nowhere.
No one thought of Louisville being anything remotely contending, and now they're shaking things up in the ACC.
Well, apparently Jeff Brohm is like the Shankara stones from Temple of Doom. When you put them next to the other ones, they like light up and glow and give you special powers. So he should have just been back in his home in a little nook in Louisville the whole time.
I mean, I don't think the Brohms, and if that is your last name, you should move to Louisville and stay there unless you're playing an away game, because that town and that name are just, they're kind of magical together.
You know what's funny to me about it? Most of the time, fans are wrong about who they want to be the coach.
That's true.
If you took, like, okay, you and Jack are both Baylor fans. if I made you guys the committee to pick a Baylor coach, I can almost promise you would get it wrong.
Oh,
If you made me the committee to pick FSU's coach, I would probably get it wrong. Although I did, and I have text messages to prove this, tell my friends when they hired Willie Taggart, I think they should hire that dude at Memphis. That was Mike Norvell. But that was just me. I was 1 for 1. If you had asked me, after Willie Taggart and all that, if they should have hired the dude from Memphis, when Dion applied, I've been like, I don't know about it. Maybe do Dion. And so maybe that would have been good too, but
would have been more fun.
It wouldn't have been, who knows? But you can't just put fans in charge. Look, Garrett knows a lot about LSU. If you put him in charge of picking LSU's next coach, I would bet you he would get it wrong.
More than likely.
Yeah, because you don't have as many things at your disposal. But this is an instance where Louisville fans, for literally a decade, have been saying, Jeff Brohm. We want Jeff Brohm to be our coach. This is the guy we want, Jeff Brohm. And they're like, well, how about this guy? They're like, Jeff Brohm. And then, well, what about, no, Jeff Brohm. This guy's like, no, Jeff Brohm. Charlie, no. Is his name Jeff Brohm? No, that's who we want. And then here it is, year 1, and the whole stands, like every time they score a touchdown, their chance would be, we told you so.
Yeah, they're probably laughing.
Sorry, I didn't understand that.
We have a third co-host now. But they're probably laughing at the idea that Jeff Satterfield or Scott Satterfield was going to be the answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he immediately, and here's the thing for Scott Satterfield. He went to Louisville, and I don't think he understood because, like, when he was at the press conference or his, like, first event, I'm sure, like, he went to an alumni event, and he's like, all right, we're going to win. I'm going to take questions from you guys. And the first guy's like, why are you not Jeff Brohm? And then he can't answer that question. That's who they wanted. They're the Brohms are the Mannings of Louisville. They're the first family of that town, and it's worked out well for them. So,
yes, it has.
And they've got they have Jawar Jordan on the roster. He's a great player. Jack Plummer, who was a 3-time transfer quarterback, has come there and started at Purdue. Yeah, started at Purdue with Jeff Brohm. So, and he's, been able to easily move into that offense. Although, again, they're not great. But they shut out Duke this week, who played with a very gimpy Riley Leonard and couldn't.
I think Duke should go ahead and let him rest now. Because they've lost to Florida State and now Louisville. Duke.
Well, they're out of the race for the time being. I get why you play them against Louisville, because if you can stay in the race, you stay in the race. But now that you're out of it.
Yeah. So let the kid take a beat.
Yeah. Just have him put his foot in ice on and off for the next 3 weeks.
Keep it elevated.
Yeah. So
could I pose 2 ACC questions?
Sure.
Okay. First, what are your thoughts on Virginia Tech and the turnaround that's going on there with Fry? And then I want your opinion on Pat Narduzzi's comments.
Oh, yeah.
And essentially losing the locker room on Twitter.
Yeah. Pat Narduzzi, that's an interesting one. We'll talk about that second. I think what you should do in the ACC, if you are struggling and you have Tech in your name, you should hire a guy named Brent. Because Brent Key at Georgia Tech, on the way up. Mm-hmm. Brent Pry at Virginia Tech, on the way up. Yep. Kyron Jones playing really, really well for them. And, they've kind of figured him out and what he can do well. They're winning games. Now, I don't think they want to – I'm sure they want to get to the championship game, and there's still a chance they get to the championship game. They're 3-1 in conference, and that one was a big one in that they went to Tallahassee and got put in the wood chipper.
They got absolutely crushed.
So I don't think they want that again, but I do think that they will make a push, and I like what he's doing there. Early in the year, I was like, man, I don't know if this is working.
Yeah, it didn't look like it.
And they're just were not – you weren't just seeing the things – in year 2 of a coach that you sometimes see. Mm-hmm. But here, I think that you, now you're starting to see that. Pat Narduzzi, first of all, I don't think that you say we lost a lot of good players and we don't have good, essentially saying we don't have good players.
Yeah, on
now.
our roster, we don't. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you can believe that. Believe me, like I can tell you, every team that is struggling in the country right now, their coaching staff should be having discussions of, all right, well, these guys just aren't good. We have to find to get the best guys out on the field that we can, but the ones that we have right now are not good. Mm-hmm. So let's not pretend like they are, and then we have to address the roster when we can address the roster. Now, I do think sometimes coaches believe in their roster a little bit too much.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of happens
right
here a little bit, where they're like, well, we've seen these guys do this
in practice against each other.
Yeah. But then against other teams, they're like, oh, no, they can't do that. Like, the measure is not the measure of how you earn playing time is what you do in practice. The measure of how you keep playing time is how you do when you play guys with different colored shirts on. And I think that's where it is. Pat Narduzzi, like, I don't know how long, like, we're not in that locker room. We don't know how he smoothed it over, but it's always going to be in the back of your head. You know, you can have, like, it's an argument at the workplace where you might be kind of over it and not, like, worried about it anymore. But every time something bad happens, it's going to be it's going to be right there. He also did it the week before they play the best team in their conference. So
true.
Not maybe like not the best motivating tactic. Like, hey, I know you guys are about to go play the best team in the league, but I want you to know I don't believe in you.
Yeah. I'm just keeping it real right here in this locker room.
Listen, I know that like they're really good and everybody thinks they're going to be in the college football playoff and you know, they got a lot of good things going. And I want you to know from right here, deep down in my heart, you can't beat them. You're slow. You're fat. You're weak. You can't throw. That's how I feel about every single one of you. And I mean that. But go get them.
God, there's a highly offensive locker room sketch on YouTube that I won't even bring it up because it is that offensive, but you're reminding me of it right now.
Like your parents did you a disservice by telling you should have been an athlete. I fell for that. It's my fault.
Your high school coaches totally screwed me here.
You know what's funny is like you do say like it's on the like you say, hey, we lost a lot of good players. But it's on us. Like you are basically saying like, listen, it's on me to be able to recognize that these guys aren't good. And I didn't do that. I'm now realizing it. I'm sorry. And then you have to go be like, yeah, I said that. He's going to smooth things over. It was just not a smart move.
No.
But coaches are emotional. Look, I think Dabo, and look, they lost. Clemson lost again. Dabo threw Cade Klubnik under the bus a little bit last week when he was just being honest about what it was supposed to be. But sometimes like, It's amazing to me when coaches are cagey and when they're not. Like, Dabo's a really cagey dude lately. When you ask him questions that he shouldn't be cagey about, he's really cagey. And then ones that he should be like, look, you know, kid made a decision. You know, he saw something there that we didn't see. You know, it didn't work out, but Cade's a great athlete, and he'll learn from that, as opposed to like, well, it's supposed to be a handoff, so I don't know what he was thinking. I mean, I know how that's how I would feel, but when this thing is in front of you, like, it's a microphone. It was invented so that everyone can hear what you're saying.
I mean, I don't see any problem with coaches saying what everybody's thinking and can clearly see by watching a game. Just clean it up, you know?
Listen, there's sometimes...
Give us the PG version of what is actually going on.
Sometimes you need to, like, you know, soft blow so there's not panic in the streets. You know, if every time that there was a war, the president went out and been like, everybody panic, like it'd be way worse. But the good presidents get out and be like, listen, we're strong, we're resolute. You know, we believe in our mission, we believe in the American cause, and we're going to go out there and we're going to bring these men and women home, as opposed to like, I don't know what we're doing. The general doesn't listen to me. You know, like all of these things. Those are things you can't do, and that's kind of what Dabo Swinney did last week and what Pat Narduzzi did this week, and that sometimes you just need to say, you can say what you want to say without saying it directly.
I mean, I think you can be PG-13 when the mic is in front of you and then go be rated R in the locker room.
Exactly.
That's how I do it.
I mean, you know, if you're in church and the guy next to you has a booger, you don't go like, Frank, you got a booger. You do this.
Go digging for nose gold.
You do this. You're like, Frank. And then Frank, you know, gets it and moves on. But, like, that's not what they did. No. When we come back, we keep diving into Week 9, including Oregon State, who was maybe an outside playoff darling. Arizona and Noah Fafita continue their rise. This is the Triple Option, 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Alongside Jacob Wilson, Garrett Ross, and Jack McKenzie, kicking back with his feet up, which he's earned. Jack's earned that.
Right.
He works very hard. He needs a few minutes during the day, a hectic Monday, to kick his feet up. We don't have a camera pointed at Jack, but he looks very comfortable right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he still looks comfortable. He deserves, even when he's working.
It's the thing with these Gen Z kids. They look comfortable and lazy, and they claim to be working. I don't understand it.
Yeah. They're the ones who, like, with the nap pods. You know, in my day, we didn't have a nap pod. We just fell asleep on our desk.
I mean, my technique in college was just if I was falling asleep at work or in class, I just dab a little hot sauce on my hand there and take a little lick, and that would wake me right up.
Really?
I wasn't paying attention after that because I was in pain, but I stayed awake.
Whatever works, Jacob.
Exactly.
Whatever works. All right, so we are hurtling through. We're going to get the first rankings this week. And let me take this as the first opportunity in 2023 to make my yearly PSA, of which I will do a lot of. The ranking shows before the last one don't mean shit. They don't mean anything. They're pointless. It's a television show. It's made to build up drama. So tomorrow night, when you're watching the ranking show, and they come out and they say something about your team or another team, and you're like, how can they? Blah, blah, ah! Don't do it. Don't watch it. Don't worry about it. We're here to worry about it and report on it for you. I will not watch it. I'll read the rankings. I'll read the recap that they send me and pick out things I think are nonsense, talk about it, and then we'll move on because, again, it doesn't matter.
It might not matter, but it gives people like us a lot to talk about.
Yeah, that's what our job. But, like, don't stress over it because if your team is 7th right now and you feel like they deserve to be higher, they can very well be. Look, Michigan and Ohio State are both going to be in the top 4. They play each other in 3 weeks. So one of them is going to lose that game. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. I mean, don't tell an Ohio State Buckeye that because they take losing to Michigan super rational.
It's not going to be fine for whoever loses that game, but it'll be fine.
I mean, I think everyone not at Michigan, like the powers that be, just anyone who's a fan of college football, they're just hoping and praying that Michigan loses at least once and to Ohio State because that'll give them a reason not to, put Michigan in the playoff and win a national championship. And the NCAA doesn't have to do any punishing.
Well, they will have to anyway, but they won't have that over their head of, they won a national title doing all this stuff.
Yeah, like it's like an HR rep seeing two people fighting, and they're just like, I'm going to let this play out, and hopefully the person I'm rooting for comes out ahead.
Yeah, the other guy quits.
Exactly.
You don't have to have the meeting like, I'm quitting. No, how about Ohio State being able to just kind of lay in the weeds? A program that, unless you're an Ohio State Buckeye, nobody roots for because they're like Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia's like this now. But there are a few programs that nobody roots for. Notre Dame, unless you are a fan of that team. And then when they play, when Ohio State and Notre Dame play each other, you kind of hope for the one who is down for the longest to beat the one who's up for the longest. That's the only thing you root for. But Ohio State, for the first time ever, America might have their back in that game.
Yeah.
In that they're like, we just don't want Jim Harbaugh. Like, because I honestly, here's how I feel about the whole thing. I don't know what the punishment should be. I don't know how much an advantage they gain through all this. I don't know. I have no idea how much of a difference this made with what I believe is the best constructed roster in America. Like, why you would need all this stuff, like this extra mile to do this when you could do it off of TV anyway, and not have to do all these things. What I do know, though, is that I just don't want to look at the college football playoff, no matter which 4 teams are in it. If Michigan is one of them and wins it, and go, I mean, did that help them? Like, did that help them build from where they were to where they are now? I don't want to think about that because we've all lived through the Astro scandal.
That's true. Like, did they really need to do that? No. But every single team in the Big Ten has a reason to complain for years to come if Michigan wins the national championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if something weird's going on at the game and it, like Greg Schiano did. We'll talk about Harbaugh in a second at length. But back to teams that are now reasonably out of the playoff. Oregon State was kind of a darling for this, but now that Arizona's beaten them, they're out of it. Still a great story and still could probably wind up, winning out because they're a good team. But Arizona is starting to make some noise. And you knew they were going to claim some victims along the way since Noah Fafita has come in and been so good. But holy cow, Oregon State really.
They were up late in that game.
Yeah.
I was awake.
They were kind of my dark horse to where if Pac-12 chaos happened, they're the ones who could swim through it a little bit. But now I think it's kind of down to Oregon and Washington, and if they can get through,
especially Utah getting thumped as badly as they did. I think that was kind of the nail in everyone's opinion coffin. Yeah, it's going to come back around to Oregon and Washington State.
And honestly, I thought Oregon was the better team than Washington, and even though Washington won that game at home, I still think if Oregon played them on a neutral site, Oregon would win the game. I think they're a better team holistically than Washington is, although not by much. I mean, clearly Washington beat them. It could be, if they played 10 times, it might be 6-4 Oregon.
This is the first year in my memory. It's ever since Oregon became good in the mid-2000s, they've never been known for their defense, and this year they actually really have that, and that's what makes them a really big threat.
Yeah. What's the reason they lost a game? They went for it on too many 4th downs. All right.
That's just the way the game is going, though.
Yeah. I mean, so they didn't lose a game because they're deficient in any area.
Yeah.
And look, if I'm any of the teams in the playoff, I really don't want to play Oregon or Washington. No. I really don't. Because they both have elite quarterbacks who, when they get going, and elite targets and elite everything, and when they get going, they're going to make it really hard for you.
I mean, it wouldn't shock me or disappoint me if Oregon and Washington both make it into the college football playoff.
I don't think that's going to happen because they'll play each other a second time more than likely.
That might have been a hopeful take because I'm tired of seeing two Big Ten and or two big or SEC teams squeeze in there. And have another conference left out in the cold. But
and right now, look, it could be very well be Ohio State and Michigan doing that.
It's looking that way.
That if that happens. But again, the loser of that game is going to be on the outside looking in of the playoff because the winner of that game and probably, especially if it's Georgia and FSU that are still there undefeated, will have conference title games to play, which is another, scratch in the column for them.
True.
That 13th data point, if that matters this year or not. We'll see. The committee just, again, makes up things at the end. I'm sure they would love it if it was just at the end of the year you looked and Georgia's 13-0, Michigan's 13-0, Florida State's 13-0, and Washington is 13-0, and they're like, look, guys, we're done here.
Yeah.
The only thing we have to figure out is who's 1-4 and 2 and 3 and what we're going to do there. We'll figure this all out. Don't worry about it. Send out the bowl bids to the other ones, and then we'll just debate these 4. But, our old friend J.D. Piquel had a tweet the other day. It was well, what happens if there's 5 undefeated P5 teams? I'm listen, we'd have a better chance of a Bigfoot riding a unicorn and the Loch Ness Monster taking a picture of it than that happening. And it's not going to happen
when did JD send out that tweet?
About 2 or 3 weeks ago. A couple weeks ago.
So yeah, that take would be very, very cold today, though.
Yeah, I mean, right now, so there's exactly 5 undefeated Power 5 teams.
One of them,
and 2 of them play each other.
Yeah.
So it's over now. Like, you could have 4, but even that doesn't seem all that likely to me because somebody's going to slip up, right, Garrett? Somebody's going to slip up.
I think so.
Yeah, whether it makes sense or not.
I said last week, Ole Miss is going to spoil Georgia's perfect season.
Everyone
I
hopes
would
so.
love that.
Everyone hopes so. Just because we want chaos.
That's not what we're talking about right now, but I'm just reminding everyone that that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Ole Miss, you say Ole Miss spoils Georgia's season. That game is between the hedges, though.
I mean, Ole Miss is kind of the spoiler team in the SEC. Like, they're the Purdue.
Well, they could have ended this Alabama nonsense a month ago, and they didn't. So,
well, Alabama isn't the top dog right now.
yeah. So they're
because they've
didn't take
spoiled
it
Alabama
seriously.
seasons before. They've done it to Florida when they had Tim Tebow. Like, I just
They beat LSU this year.
they beat LSU.
Yeah.
And this is a good team. This isn't a bad team. And so I just think that Lane Kiffin's going to come at Georgia with everything they got.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal. I'll believe when I see it. Now, Mizzou would be interesting because they almost got them last year, but that game was at Mizzou, and that was the game where Georgia gets to they get to turn in the tardy form, and then and they get their one excused tardy.
I think they played that game against Mizzou last year, kind of like, oh, this isn't a scrimmage. Okay, we can get this thing together right here at the end.
This is a tangent. I brought up tardy form.
Okay.
When unless you're riding a bus and you're not getting on the bus, and even still, how can you punish a child who can't get themselves to school for being late?
I'll leave this question alone. I'll probably get canceled if I answer this question.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying. I'm just saying a statement right now. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But I still own a fraternity pledge paddle. That's all I'm saying.
I know, my question was, I always thought this was
kidding.
weird. I even thought this was weird when I was a kid. Like, when I was in fifth grade, we had a kid get suspended because he had 7 tardies. And he lived 7 miles away from the school. We weren't at a small Catholic school. There was no bus. I mean, clearly his parents were idiots and they weren't getting him to school on time. It's not his fault that he's not. He's 11. He's supposed to get a car. What's he gonna call a cab? What is he gonna do?
I think in situations like that, you expect kids to be more accountable than adults, and that's pretty pathetic.
Yeah, I was where you call the parents in and goes, everything all right at home? Timmy's late all the time.
Just institute Dwight Schrute's demerit system. That is a demerit. 4 of those, you get a violation. A verbal warning, then a written warning. And then when do you get the desadulation?
I will report you to my direct superior, which is me. All right. When we come back, we have Harbaugh thoughts. This is the triple option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome to what has become a too often segment now because he's in the news for all bad reasons. And he's got what I think is the best team in the country. I don't know. I guess it's Georgia's the defending title, the champion, that they're ranked number 1. And Michigan has played slightly less of a schedule than Georgia's, which has not been great, which is why Georgia's still number 1. But Michigan's blown out everyone they played. To me, they should be number 1 in the country. I still think they're going to win the national championship.
I think that they're the better team too. But when you've literally not lost the game When's the last time Georgia lost a game? 2021?
Been a couple years, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're the 2-time defending national champs. They haven't lost this year. I'm okay with them being.
Yeah, I mean,
number
it's
one.
fine. I mean, we're splitting hairs, but
I know.
I think Michigan is better than them right now as it stands, and Georgia's still really, really elite. But Jim Harbaugh apparently according to multiple reports, not getting a contract extension because of the constant investigations, and according to Tom Pelissero on NFL Network this week, that maybe some of the NFL has cooled on him too. Because they're like, well, maybe we need this storm to quiet, which the NFL is all about, like, looking the other way on things and hoping it passes.
But these are things that
Are not a big deal. And that, like,
and the NFL's already had this happen.
Yeah.
And so, like, they know how to deal with it. And
I just think there's teams that don't want, like, they worry too much about losing the press conference to where somebody's going to ask them. And I'll tell you what Jim Harbaugh is going to say. Jim Harbaugh is going to say nothing. Now, he might answer the question, but it will be nothing. It'll be word salad. It'll be nothing. Or it'll be I'm here at the Chicago Bears now.
Or he'll just be like Dick Cheney when he was a Walmart greeter on Family Guy.
So, yeah, I mean, there's nothing they're going to do. I mean, just say nothing. They're going to say, he's going to say nothing, and they'll move on, and then people write their columns about, Jim Harbaugh pushes the envelope and cheats a little bit, and then the Bears or the Raiders or whoever's going to go, yeah, but he's our coach now.
I think the Bears are desperate enough to overlook anything that we know of currently that's happened at Michigan, because that is a team that is just desperate for any kind of substantial success, and he played for the Bears. So, there's that tiny little nugget of connection there.
You could have a very good discussion about the top 5 Bears quarterbacks, about who they are, because the Bears have had a terrible quarterback history. It's like Sid Luckman was back in the 30s and 40s, and that's like their best one, the one who was like the actual all-pro. And back then the forward pass wasn't as big of a deal, although he was a good passer for the time. Jim McMahon's in that discussion. Jim Harbaugh's in that discussion.
There's a good chance people watching this don't even know who you're talking about.
Jake Cutler has wound up in that discussion. And then, like, it's a hodgepodge of, like, terrible. Being, like, there are kids who grew up, like, dreaming to be center fielder of the Yankees because that's always kind of a cool thing. Like, there's probably kids in Chicago that do not grow up wanting to be.
They grew up Bears fans. They play quarterback, but they don't want to play quarterback for the Bears.
Yeah, they're like, no, I don't. Like, would you like to be quarterback of the Bears? No, that's a wasteland. I don't want to do that.
I'd rather live in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing. Like, even the best quarterbacks in that franchise's history were never there all that long. Mm-hmm. Jay Cutler came from another place. Jim McMahon, was the 85 Bears, and that's the best defense ever.
Short-lived success.
Yeah, short-lived. And then Jim Harbaugh went to the Colts after that. So who even knows? Like, what the best – but he is beloved there as Bears fans because he was one of the better quarterbacks that they've had back in the day. So he could go take that job. But this is, I think, a significant development in that, coaches like Jim Harbaugh just get contract extensions because they tell you they need one. This is what they need. They have, like, his leverage, like, even with the NFL, his leverage is gone because Michigan's like, look, we know that you're doing it, you're winning games here, but this is a headache.
I mean, as much of a curmudgeon and some might say a dick as he can possibly be, if it wasn't for there being a reason in the way of this Spygate college football edition, if you will, if it wasn't for that, like, yeah, you're right. He could walk into an AD's room and be like, hey, I need a contract extension. And the AD would be like, well, I don't like the guy, but look what he's putting on the field. It's a winning team.
Yeah. But now, like, you not only have the NCAA investigating your football program, you have the police, the state police, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation all investigating your football program. If you're Michigan, the shortest point to move past this is for Jim Harbaugh to go to the NFL. That's what you really want. Like, I'm sure if you're Michigan, you're calling NFL teams going like, look, I will write you a letter of recommendation that is glowing. Please hire him. Please. Because if he leaves, then part of your problem, not the whole problem, is solved. And that you're like, well, he's not here anymore.
No, I mean, we'll have to peel back this onion to see just how big it is. But I mean, Pete Carroll got out of Dodge at USC when the shit was hitting the fan and left that program in shambles for years.
Well, and look, this coach Weiss that got arrested for computer access crimes. So like, not only like we haven't really like it hasn't really been delved into because nobody really knows what that is, like what that meant. But computer access crimes is the fancy way of saying hacking.
Yeah.
So if Jim Harbaugh's got coaches that are hacking into other schools' computers, that like you want to talk about signal stealing, that is one thing.
Yeah, you're gonna.
But like when you have a coach
at the NSA is another one to knock on your door.
You're like hacking into other teams' computers to get whatever information you are. That is a bit of a bridge too far. And look, that also happened in Major League Baseball. And guess who did it?
The Houston Astros?
They did. Jeff Luhnow.
The way you phrased that question made me pause. Like, is it somebody else besides them?
Was the Cardinal? It was between the Cardinals and the Astros. There was and maybe I might have that reversed.
Some kind of sleeper
but Jeff,
cell.
It was Jeff Luhnow who had been at both places.
Okay.
Was doing it. And so I can't remember what it was, but that's why Jeff Luhnow got removed from his job for a little while. Was that stuff that was going on. So it's happened in professional sports too. But if you are hacking another team, which that's what computer access crimes are, signal stealing is only part of that. Like that's the part that you can see.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I bet you anything like they don't view it as a crime because even if they're hacking, which I don't know what the degree to what crime that is, it's definitely a crime. It doesn't matter why you're doing it, but if you're gonna, set a house on fire because you want charcoal, you're not thinking about the devastation that you're causing with the fire. You're trying to go get charcoal.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, but yeah, if I that's the one thing that and look, the NCAA was handed one FBI investigation, and we're like, we read all this, and we don't know. Like this is a lot of words, so I don't know what to do about it.
I mean, I'm thinking about what we talked about during the break, but the Vince Vaughn, John Favreau exchange, and I think Vince Vaughn is probably the FBI. All right, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Let's just drop it. You're the problem. You're the problem, and that's the FBI pointing at the NCAA.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Michigan has a lot to work through here, but not offering Jim Harbaugh the contract extension is to me, in my opinion, that is Michigan telling him, please go somewhere else after you play. Like, here's what we'd like you to do. We'd like you to win the national title, win that thing, and then leave. Go somewhere else. We appreciate all you've done, except not all of it.
Oh, but what a fine line you toe, though, because if they just tell him, hey, this is going to be your last year, like what level of effort or how does Jim Harbaugh go about finishing out the season, knowing that it's his last ride?
He's a crazy person.
That's why I asked the question.
He's a crazy person, so there's no way to tell. I think he would win a national title for spite, to make them see like, you didn't do, like, it was 20 plus years, 26 years since the last time you did this. Good luck in the next 26. I'm out. As opposed to like packing it in and going like,
because I don't think that the trouble stops once Jim Harbaugh leaves.
No, it's going to be like they're in the storm. The trouble stops when they get exposed.
How many programs, though, given all the distractions and these outside circumstances, could keep the program and their season on the rails the way this Michigan team has been able to do that?
Only ones that are built like a political machine, like Michigan is.
So it'd be like just a handful, right? Like your Georgias or whatever?
Yeah, Georgia, Alabama, Texas.
Yeah.
Look, Texas either has very few scandals or they just know how to get through them. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think any organization that's that big has very few scandals.
No. I mean, we've only got 6 minutes left, and I've got a novel of opinions on whether or not I think the University of Texas has scandals. But I also have a tinfoil hat in my car.
And my point is, I pick out Texas because they've they manage their way through things pretty well. Like when it comes down to it.
Yes.
And most of that is because you are prepared for it, which they do well. Like the thing about Texas, which I think everybody else that's the size of Texas could learn is, look, you're going to have problems. Where you have more problems is where when everyone knows you have a problem, and then you say, no, we don't have a problem. You're looking at it the wrong way. What Texas does, for example, with Chris Beard is, no, Chris Beard's a problem. Nobody's bigger than these horns. You're gone. And so then, while they might have a bigger problem, people quit looking as deep because they're like, well, they fired the guy who did it, so that's over. As opposed to places who sometimes let's call this hypothetical place Michigan State, where at this Michigan State University, wherever that is, people come and tell them they have a problem, and they say, "No, we don't have a problem. We don't have a problem. We don't have a problem. We don't have a problem." And then you have one of the largest scandals in not just college athletics history, in American history.
That was
like
rough.
it's something that will be taught to classes. Like people, it has changed the way that large companies do business because they were so bad at dealing with their scandal. So there's places like that. So that's where Texas does well. Michigan, I don't know if they're doing it well or not, but we'll see.
Right.
But when Matt Weiss, like what happened when they went and raided his office, they didn't stand by Matt Weiss.
No.
He's just a guy. Just like Texas. Chris Beard is a really good basketball coach. But guess what? That's not some kind of like rare pink diamond that you have to smuggle out of a country. Like there's plenty of good there was a guy on his staff just as good as he was. Amazing. So they knew it's not like, we had to go to the moon to find somebody. There's just one guy, you're standing next to him, you take a step to the left, you're in charge now. That's all you have to do. Where Michigan got rid of Weiss and they got rid of Connor Stallions. Now, the bigger problem will be when they decide that Harbaugh has to move on and how that goes.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to have to deal with his exit, and then they're still going to have to deal with the aftermath. But one thing in the meantime that I think they've done well, I'm not sure exactly how they've navigated it, is they have found some kind of scandal pause button to where they haven't had to deal with anything. Like it's almost like the information is leaked out in a time that's convenient for them to map out how they're going to handle everything.
Yeah, no, it is. Part of it is just acknowledging that everyone knows it.
Yeah.
And then doing the thing where we didn't know about this. I was just sitting here and this boy genius was coming up to me with all the signals. And I thought, oh my God, I've found
I found a wonderkind here.
Yeah, I've got a wonderkind, and that's it. That's what we're going to do. Which also no one believes, but we also can't prove it. Because you could make the case look, I give my staff a lot of latitude, and I tell them this is what I want. I want you to study their signals and see if we can do that. And then if you give no instruction past that, you didn't say by any means necessary, but they could have inferred that you meant by any means necessary. And then you find out Connor Stallions is buying tickets and just turning in receipts that, he writes for something else. Hey, I spent $300 this week. Okay, fine. Why were you in East Lansing, Michigan? I was recruiting. All right, whatever. Fine, here's your whatever it is. And then you move on, and then you can be Jim Harbaugh and be like, well, did you know he was in-person scouting? And did you know that your offensive coordinator was hacking at other things? No, I have a lot to do here. I didn't know that. I am shocked and appalled that the people that I interviewed and hired for this job would ever do that to me. I can't believe it. Me, in charge, totally in charge and control of everything, but clueless as to anything that's bad. I am only in charge of the good things. I'm Jim Harbaugh. That's what they're doing right now.
Yeah. It's a really, really good point that you just made. I just think that they've done a good job in the meantime. I just don't know if they can sustain that because chickens are going to come home to roost at some point.
Yeah. Also, Jim Harbaugh, one-time guest star of Saved by the Bell, the new class.
You don't say. It sounds like, I mean, I know that was a huge turd, but I didn't know that Jim Harbaugh was on that.
He was Screech's cousin.
Screech's cousin. May he rest
Harbaugh
in
and
peace.
Screech. That seems fitting.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Dustin Diamond.
Yeah. And Matthew Perry, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Sad, very sad news about Matthew Perry this weekend. Well, that's going to do it for us on that sad note. But Garrett, thank you. Jack, thank you. Jacob, thank you for coming in on late notice once again.
I'm the Jason Terry of this show, Paul. The sixth
You are.
man.
Exactly. That's exactly what you are. You're the Jason Terry of the triple option. That's going to do it for us. We've got Rhett Lashley and Jeff Traylor on the show today. Later on at 3 o'clock. So those should be really good among a cast of thousands, including JJ Joe and Phil Bennett. That's going to do it for us. Have a good night, everybody.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next